Okay, the webinar is being recorded. And it is, see, Carol, are you there?
You're muted, Carol.
Sorry, now I'm
Okay, oh, there you are. Okay, good. I just want to make sure you were on, and now we've switched to the agenda, and Steve is chairing tonight's meeting.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. This is the March 15th, 2022 meeting of the Newburyport Conservation Commission on the Zoom platform. And this meeting is being recorded. First item on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from March 1st.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, let me call the roll. David Vine,
Yeah, I wasn't at the meeting, so I guess I have to abstain.
okay,
I listened to the minutes, but that was it.
Actually, you're allowed to vote on the minutes, even if you weren't at the meeting. And
Okay,
since you've listened to them, that's fine.
all right, well, I did listen, so I'll say yes.
okay. Paul Healy,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, next is all the new business. Plum Island updates. Do we have any?
I do not have any new Plum Island updates. No, not at this point. Although we did have a good site visit out there last week with the mayor, Department of Public Services, and Sharif, the Ward 1 City Councilor, and Mark Wright, also Councilor at Large, and just looked, and Anders Bjorngard from GZA. We looked at the whole core bag rock wall system, see how it was holding up, and what had changed, and what we could maybe do to further protect that area. Anders is, tasked now with coming up with potential additional sand or location for a potential additional coir bag, but we have not yet heard back from him on any of that. So far it's holding, it's holding its ground.
What is happening with the homes out there that were damaged? Or are there any that aren't habitable anymore?
There are at least 2 that aren't habitable. One is before us under a notice of intent, and that's 1075th Street. And that one is Ray Kingman is applying for a permit to elevate the structure up on pilings and rebuild it. And the other is at the end of 73rd Street, and that's Stan Sachs' home. And I believe that they are out of there as well. So, and I'm not sure what the status of that property is moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, 59 Low Street update.
Okay, let's see. I believe we have Kim Turner here. Yes, Kim, I'm going to promote you to a panelist right now. And now I will open up, let's see. Oh, wait. Yeah, okay. We've got, this is the, no, that's not the right one. I'm looking. Oh, 59 Low, it's over here. Okay, yeah. I just wanted to show you all, I'm sure you're familiar, you remember the discussions with the City Council about the purchase of 57 Low Street, whether it be for a future youth services facility or parks or some other unidentified city use. The city, as you know, did end up purchasing the property about a month ago. And here it is now, we're trying to figure out how to lay out a potential project on the site for youth services. And so there was a delineation done in 2019 of the wetlands on site. It was never confirmed or formally submitted. It was just sort of done in order to give an idea of whether or not we should purchase the property. Now that the city has purchased the property and wants to move forward with some design on the site, they need to go back and actually do a delineation that can be submitted to the commission. So Kim Turner is an assistant to the mayor, and maybe Kim, you want to, she's also a landscape architect who you probably remember from other projects.
Yeah, thanks, Julia, for that. And for those of you doing a double take, I was the chair of the Parks Commission for 7 years. You've seen me before this commission before, also landscape architect. But yes, so Julia's synopsis there is correct. The city has bought 59 Low Street. They are eyeing it right now for a number of different potential uses, most likely of which would be for youth services. So really what we're trying to do here is our due diligence on the property. As Julia said, the last delineation was done 3 years ago, but it was never formally submitted or reviewed by this commission. So we are thinking at this point that we would like to get the wetland line restaked and have that established and approved by the Conservation Commission through an RDA, if that's amenable to you all. So tonight was really just a informational bit of, overview of what's happening with the site so far, with the intent that at a future date, we would hopefully formally submit as an RDA a wetland line that you all could review before we start to do any development or design for the site for any particular purpose. So that's the purpose of me being here tonight.
Do you know approximately where the property line is now, separating the property we bought and the armory?
Yeah, so it runs sort of, you can see there's a gravel area where some vehicles are parked. So it's just on the Powder House side of that line, running kind of parallel to the northernmost property line.
Okay.
Now, can one do a delineation, have an accepted delineation by way of a RDA?
Yes, it is one of the options in an RDA. So normally we get RDAs to make a determination as to whether or not a project is within a resource area is going to have an impact on that resource area or buffer zone. And the determination, it would typically be no, otherwise they wouldn't be submitting an RDA. If the determination was yes, they do notice that. But one of the other reasons you can submit an RDA is to have the commission make a determination of the wetland boundaries. It's just something that we don't see very often because typically an applicant would do an ANRAD for that, but this is just a simpler process. ANRAD, and ANRAD is good for 5 years as well, which is why developers would typically do an ANRAD. That wetland delineation can be considered valid for 5 years, whereas with an RDA, I think it's just 3.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Were there any restrictions already on the property when the purchase was made by the city?
Sorry, my internet cut out there for a while, so I've missed the last few minutes. But no, there was some discussion about there being a CR put on the property before the property was purchased, but that was not what wound up happening.
Because I remember a previous discussion about how close the wetlands were to the building and what that might mean and how it would be accounted for, but it sounds like that hasn't been formalized in any way.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
And that's a good thing because, as we said before, the wetland delineation that was done on the site back in 2019 was never formally approved by anybody. So to have based on any kind of wetland restriction or other restriction on the property on that particular delineation just didn't really make any sense.
Right.
So moving forward, this is a way to formalize the line and to allow the city to make the right decisions with regard to how to lay out the site.
Yep.
Okay, if that's it, thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Kim?
Okay, next, certificate of authorization for electronic signatures.
Yes, okay, that is this document that was provided to us by the city. The same certificate of vote was used for the zoning board and for the planning board. And just to give you some brief background, as you know, like since COVID, we've been doing these electronic signatures. It's been allowed since the beginning. It's allowed by statute actually. But the Registry of Deeds has started rejecting certificates of compliance and permits that are where people are trying to register them with their deed, saying that we can no longer use electronic signatures unless the commission has done this certificate of vote, which is essentially you voting to say that electronic signatures are allowed. So it's a formality. This document will then go to the Registry of Deeds. They'll have it on file, and it'll be what allows them to continue to accept our electronic signatures. So you can read here, the first one essentially says that both myself and Joe, the chair of the commission, would be able to physically sign determinations, orders, conditions, et cetera, et cetera. That's not something that we would ever need to do. I don't think anyone's ever needed to do that, where it's just one or the other of us sign something. I will sometimes sign an enforcement order, but that's already something that's a common practice, and then you all ratify it after the fact. It's an emergency. Then the next one is saying that as of the date, blah, 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 recognize the provisions regarding electronic signatures, and its members will henceforth execute documents either with electronic signatures or with wet ink signatures, and that both will carry the same legal weight and effect. The motion was made by one of you on commission tonight and duly seconded by so-and-so, and then we record your votes here. You will all have to come in and sign this document by hand. So, you know, it is what it is. So I will leave this on the counter in the planning office, and you can come in when you get a chance, and then that'll take care of it. We need this motion. We need
Okay.
actually two motions.
We need two motions. Okay, can I
Yes.
have the first motion, please? Which is to do what?
Is to allow, Julia, is to allow the Newburyport Conservation Commissioner and or the Conservation Commission Chair to physically sign determinations, orders of resource area delineations, extension permits, enforcement orders, or certificate of compliance, or to make and issue any other certificate under the subdivision control law pursuant to blah, 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 blah. Chapter 131, section 40, for, as, and on behalf of individual members of the commission.
So moved.
Second,
Okay. David Vine,
yes.
Paul Healy,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Who seconded that? Was that David or Paul?
I seconded.
You seconded, I thought you did. Okay,
Yeah.
so David seconded that. I just need to make sure I fill this in correctly later. Okay, and the second motion would be to recognize and use the provisions of MGL Chapter 110G regarding electronic signatures, and that its members will henceforth execute documents either with electronic signatures or with wet ink signatures, and that both will carry the same legal weight and effect.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
a second.
Okay,
David Vine,
Yes,
Paul Healy,
Yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
excellent. Thank you.
And we all need to come in and sign that.
Yes, you do. Sooner the better, because that way the people who are waiting to get their permits and certificates and things recorded at the registry can get that done.
Julia, did you say it was going to be in the clerk's office or your office?
It'll be in the planning office on the counter. And once it's signed by all of you, I'll bring it over to the clerk's office and have him sign it. I don't think it needs to be by a, yeah, I don't think it needs to be, what's the word?
Notarized.
Notarized, right?
No, it doesn't say it, so. it
Doesn't
should
say
be
that.
fine.
Okay, great.
Okay, next we have the Colby Farm Lane Pollinator Meadow. Not sure.
Yes, let's see who's here.
So,
Maybe they could raise their hands if they're here for the pollinator meadow.
Okay.
Okay. Nicholas, I'm promoting you to a panelist, and, all right. I'm also promoting Hanson, which is, sorry if I mispronounced that. Okay. So now that you've been promoted to panelists, if you're over here, you'll be able to see your video, see everybody else, and unmute yourself to give your presentation. I just quickly pulled up an aerial showing the site, which is the Colby Farm Lane property that was donated, that was gifted to the city in exchange for the development as part of the open space residential development project on Colby Farm Lane. And that's the aerial. And this is the depiction of the 3 separate areas for management within that public open space. We've got the hayfield and walking trail. This is the field 3 to be maintained in early succession, and field 2 to be maintained in early succession. So all to promote pollinator habitat, really, except for the hayfield. So
So
now
field
we-
two
Yep.
is where the pollinator project that we're talking about is going to go.
excellent. Okay, perfect.
And what are all those dots representative?
I think that's just wetland markings.
In
Yeah.
general, yeah, okay.
So ACES, the Alliance of Climate and Environmental Stewards, is a Newburyport group, and they're presenting this project. So whoever is here from ACES and wants to sort of talk us through this, I can go through the slides. Just let me know when to switch slides and I will switch them for you.
Thank
Uh,
you. Okay, so I'm Ellie Volkhausen. This is my daughter Josie. And Nicholas, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, and I'm Nicholas, and I'm a junior at the high school, and I'm also working on this project.
So Nicholas and I are co-leads on the Pollinator PowerWorks project, along with Susan McPhee and Katie Adams, who aren't here tonight. So Nicholas and I are going to run through this presentation for you. And Josie is one of our youth corps members who's a River Valley Charter. You can tell them what grade you're in.
I'm in 4th grade.
Yeah. And we all share a concern for the declining population of pollinators and, worldwide. And we all share a passion for helping to be part of the solution to that decline. So Nicholas, just to give you a little background, Nicholas has a huge pollinator garden in Newburyport, and we live on Spring Street, and we have a very tiny patch, so we have a tiny little garden, and we're both, so that's where we bring a little bit of experience to this. So we are a multi-generational group of stewards, and we're aiming to create a network of pollinator gardens throughout the greater Newburyport area, which can be connected to surrounding communities and become part of the greater Massachusetts network. So next slide. So our mission is to create a network of pollinator gardens in local spaces throughout Newburyport, although we have ventured into Newbury a little bit too. And then we were actually advised by a fellow River Valley Charter parent who's a landscape architect to think about pollinator meadows. We just didn't think that this opportunity would present itself to us quite so quickly. So this is very exciting for us. So we can go to the next slide. And so we very much welcome the opportunity to work on converting the hayfield at Colby Farm Lane to a pollinator meadow. And we've toured, Nicholas, Josie, and I toured the field with Stephen, and we feel confident we can convert the field to a pollinator meadow by cordoning off 1,000 square foot areas at a time. We're open to doing more than 1,000 square feet, but we wanted to start with something reasonable to present to you and then talk about scaling that. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, so our goals are long-term, repopulate the entire field with pollinator plants instead of hay grass. And short-term, tarp, prep, and seed and plant 1,000 square feet of area along the stone dust path off of Colby Farm Lane. So this is a first step in repopulating the entire field. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. Okay, so Nicholas, do you want to take over? Nicholas is very good with the nuts and bolts. I mean, my mom was an organic farmer for years, so she's given me some feedback as well, but I feel like Nicholas can explain this part very well.
Sure. So the first step of this project, which is going to be for the spring and summer, is to smother the existing vegetation and try to remove all of the existing plants and as much as the weed seed bank as possible, so that when we plant some seed in the spring, we aren't going to have to excessively weed. So that's going to involve putting like heavy plastic and securing it down with rocks or lumber across the site. And also there are some multifloral rose shrubs in the hayfield that you can't just cover in plastic, and we'll need to cut those down to the ground and instead wrap the stems in plastic so they don't send up new shoots. And then come fall, probably around September 1st, around Labor Day, we'll remove the tarps and we'll plant some plants. We'll have to see exactly at which spacing, although my guess is something about 3 square feet between plants. And we aren't going to be planting like huge gallon plants, they'll be smaller, as well as seeding in between. Native pollinator meadows tend to take a few years to establish if you just start them from seed. So the hope is by doing a mix of plants and seeds, we get the benefits of having some plants established earlier, but also the benefits of filling in between things so that we don't have huge problems of weeds. You can move on to the next slide. I don't, maybe you could follow the link, but we have a list of native plants we've prepared just based on what I've heard and also my experience of what's worked well in my garden will work well in a hayfield as well. And they're just plants that look nice, but also of high ecological value and are native to New England. If it's too complicated to go to the link, I can maybe find a way to share it with everyone.
Or I could also get to the site when I'm back in the office and send a link to the.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that would work. And you can go to the next slide.
Okay.
And this isn't necessarily related to the pollinator meadow, but here are some of the plans we've come up with, because in addition to doing this pollinator meadow project, we've also been working on trying to get pollinator gardens into people's yards. So see, these are some of the sample plans you've come up for people to work with. So yeah, you can just click through them. We have 5 plans in all. Oh, we only have 1.
You know what? I only put the large one in here because it had the most variety of plants.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we can move to the next slide.
Ellie, do you want to do this part?
Sure. So we're presenting the funds on the next slide for each 1,000 square foot area. And as we scale, the cost becomes less because you buy things in bulk. We thought ACES had a faster funding plan, but it's taking a while. So we have our own like fundraising going on. But if there are any funds that the Conservation Commission has access to, that might be helpful in getting us off the ground quickly. So the next slide shows what our budget is. We're hoping that it's more on the low end, depending on how many square feet we do, but this is the range for what it would cost for 1,000 square feet at a time. we have to go to Prairie Moon Nursery and the Native Plant Trust and get more, once we reserve plants, we'll have a better idea of the exact cost.
Yeah, there's also Prairie Nursery. That's another nursery we found. And then I also might add that I said $35 from Seed. They sell seed mixes of native plants for the Northeast. So we were going to fill in with that. And it's a mix of perennial, annual, and biennial natives.
And so that's it. That's
And,
the basic plan.
just as far as cost goes, I was in contact with Dr. Robert Jagir today. And I don't know if the members of the commission remember, he came and visited the site last spring. He's interested in supplying some plants for it because he's studying declining populations of native bees. So he would be able to provide some plants, I'm not sure how many, which might help reduce the cost. And his particular interest, of course, is bees, not butterflies. So not all plants are appropriate for both. So anyway, we might be able to lower the cost for plants somewhat.
That would be great.
As far as the Conservation Commission putting some money into this, what would be our mechanism of doing that? Do we vote on it or something, or is that difficult, Julia, for us to inject money into this?
No, it's not difficult at all, especially because it is germane to Conservation Commission activities and duties, or with regard to open space. And this open space, I believe, was deeded to the city on behalf of the Conservation Commission. So it's one of the properties that we sort of oversee. In the past, when we have provided money for projects like this, whether it's been like a Boy Scout project to install a bog bridge or something, typically what the commission does is vote to allow expenditure of like up to a certain amount of money. That way, if it comes in less, that's fine. But you've sort of estimated the amount that you would feel comfortable providing for a given project. And then when an invoice would be submitted to the Conservation Commission, we can simply just pay it at that point because the vote has been recorded that it's authorized.
Okay.
Since the cost of the plants might not be incurred till later during the summer, perhaps we could cover the costs of the upfront, the wooden boards, the plastic, the seeds with a little extra. And then see where we go from there.
You would order the seeds over to late in the summer, midsummer as well. So the plastic and the boards, basically all of the site prep materials are all that we should need right away, which is the cheapest part of this project.
Right.
So the way that would happen would be you all would probably go out and purchase what you need. Then you can submit your receipts to us and, with a summary and et cetera of those costs and what, sort of itemized list, and we can reimburse you.
Sure. That sounds great. Okay. And then would we definitely start with just 1,000 square feet, or because I know there was talk of expanding that. We could also, one option, if we want to do more, we could actually tarp, since that's the least costly, we could tarp more than 1,000 square feet to just prep more quadrants and just remove the tarps in the fall for the 1,000 square foot plot, because it's actually easier next year if it's tarped for a longer period of time, if we tarp more areas. So, I mean, that's another way that we could get a head start on a bigger area without committing to putting all those plants in the whole expenditure at once, and time expenditure too, of course.
Would
also
you
allows
Depends
change-
on how many volunteers you think you're going to be able to get to help.
Right, well, that's why I'm thinking if we could easily tarp a bigger area, but planting 1,000 square feet is more work than the tarping. So that's why I was thinking,
Yeah.
if we want to get a head start on next year, then tarping it for a longer period of time would definitely, from what I'm hearing from people who've done this before on a large scale, it would probably be easier next year if it's tarped for longer. So, and that way we would also have a smaller area and it would be more like the minimum viable product, you know, like to start with, and we could test our methodology and see how many volunteers so far this project is scaling very quickly and we're gathering a lot of interest. But when it comes to actually going out, starting to dig and stuff, you never know if you're going to have the same level of interest. So that's why I'm thinking like the planting part, if we limit that to 1,000 square feet, that will be a good first experiment.
Okay. How about if we, and feel free to say no, if we tarp 3,000 square feet and plant 1,000,
Yeah,
does that work?
that works for me, Nicholas. Okay, good. I always like to consult Nicholas because he has a lot of good thoughts about the actual execution of plans. So, all right, cool. It sounds like we're all in agreement.
Would, if you did that, if you did have extra, would you, right now you're going in the fall and it sounds like you're using the summer and so forth to kill off the existing plants. If you had this surplus, would you start the planting earlier if it had been tarped longer? You see what I'm getting at?
Yes, I think so. I think if we keep it on longer, then it might be ready next spring.
Yeah. That's what I was
Probably
thinking.
be in better shape. I mean, it takes a while to kill things with the tarp. So we might lift it up in fall and have a lot of, you know, it might not be as ideal as we want, but I think we can still probably make a go at planting, but it might make it easier the next spring if it's tarped for a longer period of time.
It's a
Because
good way
more-
to compare your methods too, to compare and
Yeah.
contrast the methods. You'd be able to see which work better. It also gives you some extra time to raise more money for the plants that you need for this next spring. It gives you more time to gather more volunteers and get more interest in it too. So
Yeah,
it's like a good plan.
definitely. And I think we can also, if this is of interest, it would help us with fundraising and with gathering volunteers if we got some local press, like in the, you know, because we had an article in the paper and that's where we got about 10 takers for putting pollinator gardens at their homes. And so I think if we do some, if we ask someone, you know, do you want to write about this? We could potentially get more traction with fundraising volunteers for the spring.
So what's the total cost, Steve? What are you thinking?
Well, let's see, we need to, like, for the plastic and the wooden boards, that comes out to $130. So if we're tripling that.
No, just the plastic and then, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we were tripling it. I was tripling the black plastic and it was
Yeah.
120.
I don't know, $500.
But I think we should also put in something towards the plants for this fall.
Okay, well, do you want to do that now or wait until? we're
I
ordering?
would do it now so that they know what that they've got it covered.
Mm.
Okay.
Steve, when will you know about the possible donation of some plants or seeds from, I forget his name already, I'm sorry.
Jagir, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he's committed because he would use it as part of his research studies.
So does that help in the calculations?
Yeah, I'm sure what he would donate would be several $100s worth of plants that wouldn't have to be bought.
Yeah, what if we say then that we will, allocate up to $2,000 for this project?
Okay, I think that's quite generous, but I'm more than willing to do that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great project, and I'd rather not nickel and dime it. Since, I believe that our funds do have that money right now. And, and if the other person does come through with more money, or there's other fundraising, we're only allocating, they can bill us up to $2,000 worth, but at least they're covered.
I'm fine with that. Can I get a motion?
I'll move that, allocate spending up to $2,000 for this project.
I'll second.
Okay, David Vine?
Yes.
Wait, can we have some discussion? I just wanted to know from Julia, how much do we have in terms of available funds? Are we okay on that amount?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
that would
sorry.
not impact the commission's funding.
Okay,
That would be fine. Believe me, we have well beyond that. And we take in fees regularly.
okay, sorry.
That's a
Paul
good
Healy?
question. That's important.
We'll try to be frugal and not spend all $2,000 too. Anywhere we can, we'll
Right.
try to make the most of it.
Paul, you want to vote?
I vote yes.
Carol Wagon?
Yes,
And I vote yes. So you guys are good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, good luck.
Just
Yeah,
let's
good
make
luck.
sure you all have my email address. Maybe Steve, if you could forward an email that includes all of us, then we can get in touch with each other by email for when you purchase the products and need reimbursement and stuff like that.
Okay, yep, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so I guess we leave you to the rest of your agenda.
Okay,
Very
thank you.
good.
Really
Thanks so much.
excited. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
good luck with the project. Sounds great.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, next is certificates of compliances, requests for determinations, and requests for minor modifications and extensions. First is 79 Parker Street.
Okay, you all might remember, and I don't believe there's anyone here representing this project tonight. It's simply a request for an extension to the order of conditions that was issued back in April of 2019 for the 79 Parker Street project, which if you can remember, it's that white sort of farmhouse on the corner of Parker Street and Scotland Road. And there's a big barn and wetlands on one side and sort of fields on the other side and in back. And the project involved renovating the white old house, turning it into offices, tearing down the barn and rebuilding it as a function space. And then in the back, building a new structure that would house the Newburyport Brewing Company. And then there would be outdoor landscaping, function space outside. And they had permitted for trails and bridges through the wetlands and things like that. Actually a really nice project. And I believe there was Pollinator Meadow involved in that one as well.
Yes,
There was. It was so they obviously then like economy and COVID and things got delayed. There was actually an appeal of I believe it was their special permit or their zoning board permit, and that delayed things, and then COVID hit. So anyway, long story short, they need an extension. They started work on the barn, but they need an extension to get the rest of it done, and they're asking for 3 years.
Right.
No changes at this point from what they originally filed. I know it reads that way, but Julia, is there anything that's changed?
We have not seen any proposed changes to the plans yet. Our understanding is that they're going to take a phased approach to getting it done. So they're starting with working on this barn. And then, from there, take it piece by piece. At that point, I don't know if they will come in for modifications or not, given that it's been some time, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Which part of the project are they doing first?
The barn is an existing old barn on the site that they were at first they wanted to see if they could renovate it and use it as like a function space to hold weddings and functions and things like that. It turned out it just wasn't, structural integrity was not there to keep it. So they got permits to tear it down and rebuild in its place. So that's the piece that they're working on first.
So what do they need from us now? They just need an extension?
Yep, they just need more time.
They want a 3-year extension?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to give them a 3-year extension.
I'll second.
Okay, David Vine,
Yes,
Paul Healy,
Yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Okay, excellent.
Next, we have Jordy Vining and the rail trail.
This, Steve, did we talk about this today on the phone? Yes.
Yes.
So the rail trail project was actually permitted back in 2014 and went through several extensions, or in one extension, and then there was a long, permit delay, etc. There was contamination on site. They had a bunch of different amendments because of that, and then they ended up elevating the boardwalk. So it took a long time, which is why now they were coming in all these years later for the certificate of compliance because it was recently finished. But as Steve pointed out today, there's a special condition in the order of conditions that says that the plantings must be monitored for 2 years with annual reports provided to the commission. So that we're only at year 1. So I spoke with Jordy Vining today in the office and sort of reminded him about this special condition. We spoke with the consultants on the project who submitted the request for certificate of compliance. Everyone agreed, let's just wait till next year. We'll give the plantings their time. We'll, that we, rather than getting a partial certificate tonight, they said, let's just put it off a year. So they're asking to basically withdraw the request for now.
no action from us.
I would hope that part of their monitoring would be do some weeding out there. The grass is taking over some of the plantings.
I will let them know that that's what we'll do.
Okay, next is Harold and Catherine Hanson, 1 Bain Lane, minor modification.
Okay, for this project, we have Mara Robinson, and I'm going to promote Mara to a panelist. She'll be able to unmute herself, and this is the plan that Mara has submitted for 1 Bain Lane. I'll just give you a little brief update. Or you might remember, I believe it was 2020, or maybe even last year, that commission permitted some additions to the existing building. It's a single family home at the end of the lane, and the Merrimack River is sort of out and back. These sort of shaded tan areas are the addition that was permitted. And they've been constructing that. I believe it might be even almost done, if not done. But Mara was brought on board to do some landscaping work, and so she can present that. She's just requesting a minor modification for this work.
Good evening. My name is Mara Robinson. I'm landscape designer, and I'm working with Kathy and Harold on this project. They brought me in. This is going to be a phased project. We thought we'd first start with tackling the driveway, and the major reason our request tonight is because of this really tight turning radius that they have. They've experienced a lot of issues with vehicles, especially service vehicles, delivery vehicles, whatnot, trying to make this turn. And they've kind of gone into the abyss there. It's about 22 inches deep, plus or minus. My clients tell me they've had to have tow trucks come and pull the vehicles out. God forbid they ever had an emergency vehicle come and try to get out. So that's why my request is, especially in that middle area there, you can see a widening of that space and a narrowing of the landscape island. We're gonna leave all the existing trees. The existing trees don't have any major tap roots. They're not really, they're not going to be, it's not gonna pose a problem by bringing this wall in a little bit and basically reconfiguring those boulders because they're just kind of slapped in there. We can do better than that. I have 20+ experience in this industry, and I know we can do some great things with that island. Also, maybe add some ferns in the middle in there. And then they have on the left-hand side where it says 18 feet 3 inches, that whole area in there is all cobble right now. And the whole driveway is kind of a mess. So there's asphalt and then that's cobble. We want to remove those cobbles as well while we're doing this work to tighten up that island and expand the driveway a bit. I want to repurpose those cobbles to 3 different aprons. One by the garage, one by the walkway, and then one at the very entrance to the site. I also want to just have about a 10-inch border along the driveway, just to kind of add a little bit more interest, because it's, it would just be asphalt. And then I wanted to just kind of enhance some of the plantings at the entrance. And I don't know, Julia, if you saw it, it was kind of a little bit last minute. If I'm allowed to share my screen, if you don't have it sent in your email, I sent you a couple 3D mock-ups.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I
don't have
sent
that. Why
them.
don't- Go ahead.
If you have them in your email, otherwise, do I have the ability to share my screen?
I can let you share your screen.
Okay.
I'm just gonna stop share of this.
Okay.
Hold on a sec, and then you can share yours. Cause I'm sure it probably came in after I left today. So hold on a sec here. Stop share. Okay, now you can go ahead.
Can you see my screen now?
No.
No. I think where you had it before, Julia, there was
Yeah.
an option. Oh, wait, here it is. Share screen. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, there we go. We can see something.
All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. That's the new fancy dancy entrance. Just repurpose the cobbles. It's really simple. And then, like I said, it's got that cobble border. You can see the island, and there's a vehicle. It's actually making the turn. Let's
Is
see, I have
that
another.
wall currently there?
The wall is currently there, and that's also something I need to deal with. It's falling apart. I want to basically put it back together, rebuild it in sections. There's sections of it that are worse off than others. And we don't want to, it is right along the wetlands. So we would have to do all the work on the inside of the wall. As I don't want to work, I don't want to be in the wetlands, but I want to be on the inside of that. But it is falling apart. There is a wall there now. There is a little bit of a grade in there. You can't tell by this mock-up. See if I have another one. And this was my other view. This is some plantings and coming in.
I have the photos, Mara, that you sent if you want me to pull those.
Oh
up.
yeah, that would be great.
Okay. All right, you need to
Oh,
stop
I
share.
stopped share. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay, now I can share mine again.
Sticking with the wall, was the wall just constructed within the last couple of years? That was interesting.
It doesn't look like it, and it would be pretty sad if it had.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question.
I'm sorry to laugh, but it's falling apart. I mean, I don't know. If you can see it, you can see like a piece of it off the side there. It's all like a crumbled mess. I mean, maybe, I don't know if my client, I don't really know when my clients purchased this property. but it doesn't look like a professional built the wall.
I don't remember that being part of this, the notice of intent for the addition project. So I think we're just hearing about the wall now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always been there and it looks terrible.
So I guess a concern that I have is you're removing the cobbles and you're gonna put asphalt down.
Yes,
So
but
you're creating a more pervious or impervious area.
no, not necessarily. So I'm sorry, I'm repurposing those cobbles. So it's about 780 square feet right there of cobble. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to basically move them to in front of the garage, and then that area that I showed on the plan that's in front of the walkway, and then the apron at the very entrance. So I'm not really increasing it by much, as I'm gonna repurpose all this. And I'm actually adding more cobbles as well, because I'm gonna do this 10-inch border around the driveway. So that's gonna help too.
Let's see if we can make that more clear. So because right now, Steve, most of the driveway is already paved. It's
Right.
just that one section that is cobble. So she's sort of moving those around. So
I'm
the
just
areas
repurposing.
that are currently paved will then also have cobble where they don't already. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the other part of my request was like this cedar we're looking at right here. It's got some sort of disease in it. And it doesn't seem to be doing well. I know these soils are kind of tough in here. There's a lot of existing pines, so the soils are really acidic. I wanted to replace that cedar right there with an American holly, which is a native species. And it would thrive. It loves the acidic soils. Some of the other plantings I was proposing, I have on my plan, are some gray owl juniper. And let's see, American cranberry bush viburnum, which is native. I think that's it. And then there's some grass that's kind of, you can see that lighter shade of green shade that's shaded in that area. That is like, that's a slope that is shaded by these existing pines. Excuse me. And it's basically really tough to get the grass to grow there. So I want to remove that patch of dead lawn and just put some pachysandra in it. So we don't have to worry about mowing it either.
So in the island that you have there, all those green things, are those trees or are those ferns that you're going to plant?
No, those are ferns. All
Okay.
those green things are ferns.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about 100 of them. 100 lady fern. And those bigger circles, those are the existing trees.
Yep. Okay. And all the trees are remaining.
All the trees are gonna remain. It's just the one, see, it's just the cedar I had asked to, like I mentioned, just request to remove that.
Yep.
And then that cherry on the left-hand side of going into the front entrance. I'm gonna try to save it, but I'm not sure it's gonna make it. If not, I just want to replace it with another cherry.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Can I get a motion?
Motion to accept the minor modification.
Second,
Okay. David Vine,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
And I vote yes.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Mara.
Thank you. Thank you so
I'll-
much.
I'll send this to you. Want me to send it to you in the mail, or I can email it to you, the minor modification approval?
You can just email it.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, can I get a motion to open the public hearings?
so moved.
Second,
David Vine,
Yes,
Paul Healy,
yes,
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
and I vote yes. Okay, Raymond R. Kingman Jr., 1075th Street.
Hey, this project was continued from the last public hearing because they did not have a file number. There weren't any other issues to be addressed, no updated plans to be submitted or anything like that. We were simply waiting for a file number, which we still don't have. So I spoke with the applicant today and they just requested a continuance if it was okay with you all.
I don't recall, do they have any outstanding planning board issues or anything that we're waiting on as well?
That's a good question. I know they were going to zoning after us. I'm assuming that that went well, but I actually don't know. I didn't hear that it didn't go well. So,
Well, we're going to continue it anyway, so I guess we
Yeah.
can check into it.
yeah.
Can I get a motion?
Motion to continue to the next hearing.
second,
Okay, David Vine,
Yes,
Paul Healy,
yes,
Carol Wagon,
yes,
and I vote yes.
And that next hearing is April 5th.
Okay, next is the Newburyport Wetlands Protection Regulations. Julia emailed them to all of us, and hopefully you've had a chance to review them.
Yes. Roll up to the top. Okay.
So Julia, if you just want to take us through the changes.
Sure, we'll start from the beginning. There were no changes to definitions, except this minor, typo change. See, we go down to another typo. Okay, this is, we made some changes, as you might remember, to the plan submission requirements, essentially just trying to focus more on digital copies and get away from requiring the 10 hard copies. And then with the first substantive change that was made was under it's still part of the plan requirements, but it's what we are guiding applicants to use when they do their stormwater calculations. The rainfall data table has been out of date. We always request that applicants use what we call the Cornell numbers, which is really the Northeast Regional Climate Center. It's the same it's the same place. So what Joe did is he just updated the table with the latest Cornell numbers, the latest NRCC numbers as of February 2022. Those numbers are reflected here. And then we put in the language that it would be these numbers or the most current data from the Northeast Regional Climate Center or Natural Resource Conservation Service, whichever represents the highest rainfall predictions. I mean, I think you could go either way. You could keep it like that, or you could just stick with the latest Northeast Regional Climate Center data, which gets updated regularly as well. But I don't think it hurts to have both in there.
yeah,
I did get a comment from Sharif Said, the Ward 1 City Councilor, that he was concerned that it might be a little bit confusing for people to have to choose one or the other, the Northeast Regional Climate Center or the NRCS. I don't know how you feel about that. I think it may, in some ways, it could be confusing, but it also gives them another option.
well, the whole idea is to take the highest
Highest.
rainfall prediction. So if one is higher than the other, then that's the one we want. And
Right.
we'd have to
Yeah.
check it. I mean, it's just
So
an
that
exercise.
means Right, so that though, that means that we always have to be checking what those numbers are ourselves.
Right,
So we're asking them to look at table 1. Well, we're saying table 1 or the most current data,
right, whichever is higher.
whichever is higher, but we're not, I don't know, it puts it on us and the applicant to always be checking whichever is higher, rather than just using what's in here.
Well, what if instead of having this table, we just reference the other centers numbers?
I don't know. I think it's helpful to have the table. Why don't we just leave it as is for now, because we can always change it if it starts to cause problems.
I mean, they don't change significantly over a year or so, do they?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I
It's-
mean, it doesn't seem like it's such a big deal for people to check both sources and make sure that they're maintaining the highest one.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think typically the people doing these stormwater calculations have these numbers at their fingertips because they're using them regularly anyway.
Yeah.
I just wanted to double check because we did get the question about it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So everyone's good with this as is?
Yeah,
All right, let's move on. Next is we get into section 6, the Plum Island requirements and procedures, and this is still under the submission guidelines. So project site plans for notice of intent on Plum Island. On number 4, we included, this is where we're talking about elevations and side views of structures and that we want to see lowest horizontal structural member, and et cetera, et cetera. We added at the end, at the discretion of the commission, the elevation of the proposed structure in relation to projected sea level rise elevations may also be required. And then this, I input this, but it didn't change. We would reference the section further down in the regulations where we have the LSCSF performance standards. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, next is still under Plum Island with the 25%, 50% rule. And this, we all know what the 25%, 50% rule is. Let's see, the intent is that if a project is large enough, then the building should be placed on pilings. Note that a project must stay, oh, this was just a clarification because people get confused as to whether or not you have to meet 25% or 50%, or is it both, or is it neither? This is just to clarify the language. So
right.
it says, note the project must stay below the thresholds of both the 25% and 50% rules in order to avoid being placed on pilings. That's just a simple clarification for people reading this. Then the rule does not apply, number 1, if the building's already completely on pilings, blah, blah, blah. Or number 2, if what we added that's new is if property lies outside of the FEMA V or AO flood zones and a licensed engineer certifies that an existing portion of the solid foundation will not require modifications, et cetera, et cetera. Before this addition, it just said that the rule would not apply if a licensed engineer certified that the solid foundation could remain. But that is inconsistent with what is in the ordinance, because on page 5 of the ordinance, it says in all other areas of the Plum Island Berry Beach outside of the V and AO zones, all new buildings, et cetera, be placed on open pilings. And then, let's see, and then it says if a licensed engineer certifies that an existing portion of the foundation will not require modifications to support the proposed building, the existing portion may remain, but that is only in areas outside of the V and AO zone. So this change says here, we add outside of the V and AO zone just to make it consistent with what's already in the ordinance. That eliminates any confusion that may come up and has come up in the past. So that's, everyone okay with this?
Yes.
Yep.
yeah, that's good.
That seems like it's a needed correction.
Yeah.
Then, however, a building must be raised on pilings if 50% or more of the exterior walls of an existing building have been removed or are proposed to be removed, and then used to say, and a new roof will be constructed or is proposed to be constructed. We added to that, if the walls have been removed or are proposed to be removed or will not be used as exterior walls, including but not limited to encasing an existing wall within a new exterior wall. And again, that goes directly to make it consistent with what language in the ordinance says, which is right here in number 11. Notwithstanding the previous sentence, the existing solid foundation of a building shall be replaced with pilings if 50% or more of exterior walls have been removed or are proposed to be removed, or will not be used as exterior walls, i.e. including but not limited to encasing an existing wall within a new exterior wall. Simply copied from the ordinance right into the regulations, again, to eliminate any confusion during permitting. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Habitable living space was just a cleaning up sort of language. Garages, sheds, basements, and attics. That didn't change anything substantively. Then we have appraisals and cost estimates do not include household appliances. It used to say and fixtures. We just clarified that, and other non-permanent fixtures, just because saying fixtures can leave it up to anyone's imagination as to what the definition of that is. So it's just non-permanent things. Then, and this is where you all wanted to just make it clear that the commission could ask for a peer review of these appraisals. It's already within the commission's authority to ask for those peer reviews, but since it's not common practice, you thought that it was a good idea to put that in here, so we did. Just as in order to adequately evaluate the appraisals and cost estimates required above, the commission may at its discretion require a peer review to be paid for by the applicant as specified in section 12, employment of outside consultants. Does that sound good?
That would give us the ability not just to have another appraiser or utilize an appraiser to check, but we could also check the cost estimates if we,
Yep.
so, because that would be helpful too when some of these just making it numbers, the 50%, just checking the cost estimates would be good to have.
Yeah, that's included in this too, so that's good. That takes care of that. Okay. Next, the section on fences, we talked about changing that 10%, but left it as is. Lattice and other enclosures, we just added language to clarify that lattice is not by right sort of approved. It's something that can be put around pilings if approved by the commission. It depends on the site, depends on the flood zone, depends on conditions of the project. Let's see, is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Decks, we removed the word repairs, and we said repair replacement of decking boards of an existing non-compliant deck may be permitted through a sign off by the conservation administrator. If any structural changes are being made, then an RDA must be filed. We removed the word repairs because I think you wanted to just be able to allow repairs to structural issues. Then we go down to the next. That might actually, no. Okay, this is in our regs where we allow letter permits to be issued, and you're all familiar with that. It's like when somebody wants to put a flagpole in their backyard and it's in the 50 foot, it's within 50 feet of a wetland. They're putting it in lawn. It's absolutely having no impact whatsoever. A lot of times we wouldn't even see this happening or hear about it, but people sometimes want, if they know they're within a buffer zone of a wetland, they just want to make sure they're not doing anything wrong. They want something on paper that they can show to their neighbors or whoever might ask to show that they have checked with the Conservation Commission. That's what we do. That's why we do letter permits, and that's how this operates. Instead of making, it used to be only, if you could only get a letter permit if you were further than 50 feet from the wetland. We're changing that so that you can get a letter permit for everything up to the 25-foot no disturb. Because typically, if you have a developed, single family home site, you often have lawn that does go right up to the 25-foot no disturb zone, or sometimes right up even to the wetland. And, putting a vegetable garden in an area that's already lawn, or like we just saw the other day, a playground structure, those types of things could be done with a letter permit if they are truly minor. So that was the change there. Let's see. We didn't change, I don't think we changed any of our performance standards for any of the resource areas. Looks like the next change, oh, we did. So no, yeah, land subject to coastal storm flowage. The one change we made here was to just eliminate the section which discusses the 10-year floodplain, because we don't have the 10-year floodplain delineated. We don't have data on where that 10-year floodplain lies. So we don't really right now have any business having performance standards or regulations for the 10-year floodplain. And when we put these regulations together, this section came straight out of another community's regs, and we kept it in, but it doesn't really make sense. So that's okay. Everyone okay with that? Okay. And that, let's see. That's it. These are just links to websites, documents, and things. So that takes care of all of the changes to the regulations. There were no changes are proposed to the ordinance at this time. Does anybody have any questions or comments about any of that?
Any public comment on them?
Well, do we have any public comment on the regs? If you do, raise your hand.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, I don't see anybody raising their hand. Okay, can I get a motion to accept the changes to the regulations?
Move that we accept all the changes to the regulations as delineated here.
Second,
Okay, David Vine,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
and I vote yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I will get those changes put in and we'll get them up on the website as soon as possible.
nice job, Julia.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody. This was a good process. All right.
Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearings?
So moved.
Second,
David Vine,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes,
and I vote yes. Okay, next we have enforcements and violations, 3Q Street.
Okay. Just quickly on 3Q Street, the enforcement order that was voted on at the last public hearing went out to both Mark Drago and John Powers. And it was specific just to the work done on the wall, modifications to the wall. And it asked for a notice of intent to be filed by April 9th. That was the conditions that you all specified. Since they've received that, I've spoken with both Mark Drago and his consultants, as well as someone who may be working for John Powers. And I believe they're trying to move forward with getting that work done. However, today, in different conversations with different members of these different teams, it became clear that it's the logistics of putting together a notice of intent on 2 to 3 separate properties with 2 different property owners is going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for a lot of different reasons, but not the least of which just communication problems out there. So, and we don't want to end up with 2 different notices of intent. That just makes it more complicated and more expensive for everybody. So I'm just wondering, I'm putting this out to you all, if it wouldn't make sense to potentially just have them put together a plan with the work that was done, all of the specs and calculations and everything that we would want as a notice of intent, but have them do it under the enforcement order. You know, have them do the work as part of the enforcement order rather than requiring them to submit a notice of intent. It just might be faster and get the same result. I'm not sure how you all feel about it, but.
Is there any legal implication by doing it that way?
No, not really, because the thing with the notice of intent, you get an order of conditions and they're legally bound to implement. Actually, in some ways, it's stronger to have them do it under the enforcement order. If you get a notice of intent and you issue an order of conditions, then okay, they can move forward with the project as approved under that order of conditions. They have 3 years to do it, and they can apply for an extension. You don't have to give them or not, but they can also, there's sort of nothing that forces someone to go to follow through on their project when they have an order of conditions. They can just not do it. Whereas under an enforcement order, they're legally bound to do what the commission asks them to do under that enforcement order. And the other benefit is that it just logistically, when you're dealing with these different properties and different property owners, it's just easier than having the notice of intent and attached to different deeds and whatnot. Just wondering if that might make it easier.
Under the
You know, I'm
enforcement
okay with
order,
that.
we could give them a deadline, which is much less than 3 years,
Right,
and that would be legally enforceable.
right.
Okay.
And there's nothing requiring, because of the work, where they're doing it and so forth, that they have a notice of intent or an order of conditions. I mean, there's nothing that we're going against here.
I mean, we can take a look at that. I mean, technically, you're not supposed to modify an existing coastal engineering structure without review and approval by the Conservation Commission. So I don't have it in front of me whether or not that requires a permit, or whether having them do it under the enforcement order is sufficient for our review and approval. I can look into that.
Yeah, I'm not objecting to the concept here of making it easier and having it more within our control. I just want to make sure that we're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah, great. And I'm sorry, I don't have that answer like with me right now. I didn't look into that. This sort of just all came up today as a possible way of making things move a little bit more quickly.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you sense that there's going to be any issues about getting the work done? Or is it more a question of allocating the responsibility amongst the different interest holders?
I think that's key, but I think it's both. I mean, I think Mr. Drago has shown that he is willing to rapidly, hit the ground and get these things mitigated. He did that on his property already. So I don't doubt that they want to take care of it. I think it may just be logistically, coordination between parties has been slowing things a little bit. So hopefully this would make it easier, because they're not going to now have to try to put together a notice of intent, two notices of intent. They've got the enforcement order. We can tell them exactly what we want them to submit prior to any work taking place. Essentially what we want from them is everything that we would want in notice of intent, but just without the notice of intent process, right? So we would want designs, elevations, we want details on cross sections of what was done to the wall, materials used, methods, etc. All of that detail. We want a plan that shows all of that, and a narrative that describes all of that, with assurances from, ideally coastal engineer to confirm that that work did not adversely affect not just the integrity of the seawall, but the dune environment and the adjacent beach environment.
Julia, I see that John Powers and William Barrett are both.
Yeah.
I don't know if either one of them want to speak? If you do, raise your hand.
Yeah, why don't you raise your hands and I can promote you. Why don't I just promote them to panelists? But I don't want to do that if they're not interested. Bill and John, okay, great.
How about things like notifying abutters and things like that? We're gonna ask for that. It seems like we should be consistent with what a notice of intent has, whatever it is.
Well, notifying abutters, I mean, the work's already been done, so in some ways that's, I'm
Well,
trying
we're
to
not just
promote,
doing the, isn't there some future plan that they're having on this as well? Or is it just to verify that the existing work was done properly?
yeah, I think it was more of an after the fact notice of intent. I'm trying really hard right now to promote John Powers and Bill Barrett to panelists, and it is not working. So I'm just going to unmute them or allow, oh, it's now it worked. Okay. So I think they've both been promoted to panelists. Okay, so Bill and or John, you can unmute yourself and maybe give us some of your opinion and perspective on this.
Yes, hi Julia, it's Bill Barrett here speaking. I just wanted to say that as I expressed to you today with regard to the coastal engineer having a look at this thing and certifying the things that you are requiring them to certify is going to be a difficult thing to do. Not that it can't be done, but we might have to do quite some searching in order to find somebody who's willing to do that. Given the fact that they can't actually see the wall, how the wall had been implemented or conditioned or constructed at the time that it was constructed initially, and then the modifications that were done, how that could be rectified. We can tell them certainly what we did, and they can certify that they wouldn't think that that would be a problem, but I don't know that, you know, you're going to get the satisfaction you want out of asking somebody to look at this point, look at this point in time. I don't think you can get somebody to certify that as an engineer. I wouldn't put a stamp on that. You know, as far as the rest of it is, the work has been completed. So, you know, if it's a matter of putting in words and in plans, what work has been done, the steps that we're taking to put this facade on the wall, I think that certainly can be done. But having it certified by an engineer who's going to state that this didn't have any negative effect or positive effect, for that matter, I think will be difficult.
I don't see why, if you're wording this in a way that the work was done and you're asking somebody if the work was done in that manner, do you see any issues with it? I don't see that as such a monumental problem.
I'm just, you know, I'm looking at it from my perspective, who have got architectural and engineering training. I don't think that myself would certify something like that without having to, or have the ability to verify the specific steps that were taken during the construction of the initial wall, and then subsequently what was done to the wall during this process that we're talking about today.
Well, I mean, we're not asking them to say that it was done. We're asking them to say that if it was done in the way you described it, would that be satisfactory?
Right. I get what you're saying, David, and I think that's a good point. Because Bill, otherwise the commission has no reason not to say that it should come out. I mean, they need to know that what was done did not adversely affect the integrity of the seawall. So if you can describe all the work that was done, provide a plan that shows as well as you can what was done, describe the materials used, etc. And then somebody can look at that, an engineer can look at that and say, well, if this is what was done to the wall, I don't see a reason why that would have had an adverse impact. I mean, if we can't get that far, then I don't know where we're gonna go with this.
Well, certainly the first portion of that you're talking about, we can definitely take care of. We can get the whole process that was used during this construction on paper, in plans that shows exactly what we did. My only question is, am I going to be able to get or find an engineer who will certify that that did not negatively affect the conditions on the ground? And I have doubts about that, but I haven't looked. And, you know, we certainly could get down that road. And if for some reason we can't find somebody, then maybe somebody on the commission would be able to help us out with that, or know of somebody that could. But we
Yeah,
could
I
certainly
mean,
go down that road.
I think we can find someone who could take a look at it. I think what we need to know is, does it need to be pulled out? If what was done is gonna adversely affect the wall, if for some reason that concrete being in there is going to eventually make conditions worse rather than better, then it shouldn't be there, right? So that's what we need to know. Can we let it stay? Can the commission allow it to stay? Or do they need to have you do some additional modifications to it to make it safe or not have it not adversely affect the wall? If we can't make that, if we don't have a way to make that call, then we're never gonna.
Okay, well, we've already talked about it today, and we're
Yeah.
certainly willing to get down that road and start that process. And if we have difficulties down the road, we'll have to discuss it then. But we will look as hard as we can to find somebody who will
Yeah,
give
The-
you what you need.
I mean, I don't know if you know Lisa O'Donnell. I think I mentioned her. She's in Essex.
I don't know her, no.
She's a coastal engineer.
Hmm.
I don't know, David, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Lisa's come, I think if I understand what was done there, which I really don't, because I don't think it was ever pointed out exactly what was done, how deep and so forth. But I mean, if what you're only doing is filling behind the wall, you didn't go out forward. I can't see anything negative about this. I am a waterfront engineer, so I mean, but I'm not going to be.
And that's exactly my point, David, is that I don't think there's anybody that would look at the situation and say, this is going to have a negative impact on the environment.
Well,
Particular.
I tend to disagree. The reason I'm not going to say it is because I'm the one reviewing this for the city. I'm not in a position to make a statement about it, but I think if you lay out what was done, I can't see why you couldn't find somebody that would say, you know, just preface the whole thing, that it's my understanding that this is what was done and that we find this good. The other part of that would be also, do you intend to use this repair in the future? And if so, I would like to know exactly what it was that you did and what you would intend to do in the future.
Okay. All right, well, I appreciate your input, and we'll get working on that shortly.
Okay, thanks, Bill. And, you know, feel free to get in touch with me again. I know we talked about this earlier today, and I'm hoping that maybe by doing it through the enforcement order rather than notice of intent will make it a little easier, if the commission is agreeable to that.
Yeah, and I've talked to Tom today as well, Tom Hughes.
Okay.
So we're both on the same page here, and we're going to try to work through the issues together to get this done.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Talk to you soon. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, well, I don't have a problem going down this road this way. So if it makes things easier and faster, and we end up with the same result, I'm good with it.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Okay, great.
All right. Anything else we need to cover?
Before we leave that one, are we leaving them with some date now to come back to us?
Well, right now, the enforcement order requires them to come back with something by April 9th. So I think we leave that as is.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're allowing them to go that far anyway. Okay.
again, I mean, the work's done. It's really just putting some paperwork together and getting, like David said, somebody come out and take a look at it.
Okay, I will not be at the next meeting.
Where are you
Um,
going?
California,
Oh, yay.
do some national parks out there.
That's great.
Oh,
Death Valley.
Ooh,
Oh, nice.
sounds warm.
Well, it's the end of March, beginning of April. I'm hoping it isn't 100 degrees. It shouldn't be, but I'm not sure I could handle that.
It's beautiful though.
Yeah. So,
Okay. All right.
one more motion.
motion to adjourn?
Second,
Okay, David Vine,
Yes.
Paul Healy,
yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
All right.
Right.
All right,
See
thanks,
y'all in
everybody.
April. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
You too.